Yes, I can see him. Yes. Could you put the screen a little lower, perhaps? Just to tilt it towards him a little bit. Other way. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Johnson. Can you hear me okay? Wonderful. I wonder if we could just have a very short meeting today just to see, to test the communication link and see how you feel doing this kind of interview. Is that okay? That's good? Yes, I hear him very well. Thank you. Uh, okay. No, that's perfect. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Well, it's a great honor to meet you, sir. I am an electrical engineer myself, and I know about the Johnson counter. So that is a wonderful privilege to meet you. I think it's good the way it is. That's good. Yes. Okay. Right. Yes. Thank you for. Thank you for. Thank you. Uh, Thank you, and it's a great privilege to meet you, Bob. And I know about the Johnson counters. I've used them myself in circuit design, so it's an honor to meet you. This is wonderful. Thank you. Um, could you tell us a little bit about uh, the uh, the change of the IRMA prototype from SRI to General Electric, and anything you want to say about that? You can take as long or as short as you like. Right. And right. Right. A fixed program or hardwired. Right. And do you remember the decision to make the production machine a stored program machine? And what was the reason for making it a stored program machine? Right. So the stored program decision was made to allow for better flexibility, and I suppose you might say more flexibility. Okay. So you had experience with stored program machines from before? Right. Can you tell us a little bit of what it was like to start the IRMA project within General Electric, which of course Ralph, excuse me, Ralph Kortner had issued very specific directions not to go into commercial computing. Uh, what was the atmosphere for you as a young engineer uh, with this? It's almost kind of like an underground or bootleg project. Mm, right. Now, General Electric at this time was already making process control computers, were they not? Ah, yes. He was the VP, Al Strickland? Right, right, right. What was the most challenging aspect of the IRMA project for you? Okay. And is it fair to say, from what I know of the IRMA system, it was the electromechanical components that created the most problems, or were the most difficult problems to solve? Is that correct? Right, right. And who ended up making the check handling equipment for the GE Irma system? Was it Pitney Bowes or someone else? Hmm. Okay. Now, speaking of Phoenix, you came earlier to the West Coast, to Palo Alto. Is that correct? And how was it for you moving to Phoenix? Were the people on your team excited about that, or were they not happy about? Would they rather stay where they were? Uh, what was this? What was the general feeling there? Hmm. Right. Hmm. Right. How many of the original Palo Alto team ended up going to Phoenix? Oh, really? Wow. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. I just finished reading King of the Seven Dwarfs by Barney Oldfield, and I know he said, if GE wants to build a capability in computing, they really need to stay in California. And but I guess the labor environment wasn't attractive to GE, and so they switched. And he actually predicted, I think, at least in his book, he says, we're going to lose these Palo Alto guys if you move. And it sounds like you just told me that that happened, and so very interesting. Um, how are you feeling? Do you have time for a few more questions? Okay. Um, Now, once the Irma system went into production, was it a fairly reliable system? Did you have to, or did you need to do some revisions and updates to it, or was it pretty solid from the beginning? Okay, and this used transistors, of course. Were these the surface barrier transistors, or the later Mesa diffused kind of transistors? Do you recall? Okay, right, right. Hmm. And now, how can you tell us how the Irma project led General Electric into computing? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Bob. Hi, Mary. Hi, I'm sorry, I can't hear Bob because of the you're talking a little bit loud there. Sorry. Um, uh, oh, 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 sorry. Yeah, we're okay. Thank you. Sorry, Bob. We were. Okay. Huh. So, okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, Bob. We were discussing how the IRMA project helped General Electric get into commercial computing, and yeah. Okay. Right. And oh yes, right. What happened when he found out, and what was the general reaction from the headquarters? Okay, but they honored the contract, of course. And was there any follow on to Irma in terms of technology or products? And, right, right. Hmm, interesting. Oh, um, at the museum, beginning in January, we're actually doing a small exhibit on Irma, and initially it was going to focus on the SRI uh, prototype, but I'd like to include the commercial version as well. And this is not a question, but just a comment. If you had any materials that would be helpful to us, like a brochure on the commercial system or something like that, we would be happy to make a copy of it and return it to you, because we would love to show not just the SRI prototype, which was remarkable in its own way, and but also the commercial version, the 30 machines that GE built. Okay. And who is that again? Sorry, I didn't catch his name. Okay. Oh yes, right, 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 right. Okay, got it, got it. Very good. Um, okay, well, could you tell us a little bit about the Johnson counter, going a bit earlier in your career there, and what made you think of that, and when did they start calling it a Johnson counter? Oh, are you still there? Oh, can you hear me okay? Yes, I see and hear you very clearly. Right? Right. And do you know, did when did they start calling it? When did they start naming it after you? Do you remember? Yeah, I tried to look, to do a little research on that, and was there? I didn't see any papers, like papers or articles on. Well, there might have been some articles, I suppose, but yeah. So I was curious because you came up with it in the early '60s, I believe, correct? Right. And of course, now it's in every textbook, every digital logic textbook. So that's that's how I learned about it. That's pretty amazing. Wonderful. Well, um, sorry, Mary, do you have a question? Do you have a question? Yes? Do you have a question, Mary? Oh, oh, yes, yes, absolutely. Right. So that's there's my cat. Sorry about that. um, Yes, I have two cats actually. So that's a great question, Bob. I'd love to ask you about the MICR font and whether you worked on that problem because it was a little difficult, I believe, for a while to get that to work reliably. Wow. Can you break down the problem for us a little bit? Was it a question of inks or sensors or having low noise amplifiers or just everything combined? Right. Yes, well, it's amazing. I never knew that it was so difficult that you essentially worked on it during the entire project. That's amazing. Um, and do you recall how you came up with the final answer to that problem? Was it just slowly, or did you have a sudden breakthrough? Right. A lot of small parts that just came together. Right. Now we still use that system today, of course, which is remarkable. And I particularly was impressed by the fact that you could spill coffee on your check and it would still work. Uh, so um, it's a very robust standard. Just yes. Are there any parts of the IRMA system that you found really kind of fun to work on as opposed to challenging? right. And how were the relations with between the SRI team and the GE team? I think after a while they didn't have much to offer you guys. I think is that correct? Hmm. Right. And how long was the collaboration with SRI? I think it was mainly just at the beginning, right? And then your team sort of went off and and took over. Is that correct? Right. Right. Do you recall what how the program was stored in the SRI prototype? Some kind of diode matrix read-only memory, perhaps, or patch panels, or oh, okay, so hardwired logic that could not be changed. Yeah, right. Hmm. That's a very interesting, design decision because at that time most computers were stored program even in those days. Um, the commercial ones, the 700 series from IBM, for example, um, and so interesting that they opted for that because it's very limiting in terms of flexibility. Once that program is hardwired in, it's very difficult to change. And anyway, um, is there anything else you'd like to say about the Irma project or what it was like to work in those days on something really groundbreaking and new? Okay. Um, one thing we haven't talked about is software. When did that come into the picture? When you started to hire programmers and those kind of people? was was that near the end of the project once you had running hardware, or were they involved pretty well from the beginning? Right. And they would maybe advise you in terms of suitable architectures or instruction sets, those kind of things. Oh, right. Right. Very famous professor at MIT. Right. Right. Ah. Right. That's fascinating. What was he like to work with? Did you interact with him very much? Ah. Oh my. Wow. Yes, he was a very interesting man, and I know a little bit about him from his ELIZA program, which you may remember. You're right. That was a very interesting psychology experiment, I think, for computer users. Um, well, as far as Irma goes, You built, was it 30 commercial machines? Okay, and they all went to Bank of America branches, I presume, or centers of some kind. And what came after Irma? Do you know? Like, or or are we still sort of living with Irma, but just with more modern equipment? Ah, okay. Ah, right, right. Now, I think I asked this before, and I'm not sure what your answer was. All the design effort that went into the GE Irma computer, what happened to the group of people after that project? Did they did they stay within GE? Did they design more computers? What did they do? Ah, right. Interesting. And well, I think that's pretty well all the questions I have for you today. Did you have any questions for me? Okay. Well, no, that's wonderful. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Bob, for this. And if you're game, maybe in the new year, we could have another. If you're up to it, I can maybe do a second part to this interview where we dig in a little bit on your career after Irma, if that's interesting to you. But for now, I think we're good. So I'd like to thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was a real honor to meet the inventor of the Johnson counter and and such a key figure in Irma, which was a really groundbreaking system. I remember, I think Bank of America said if they didn't automate the process, they were going to have to hire every high school girl in California to process the checks in their bank. And so it was a real pressing need to do something, and you and your team did that. So that's just wonderful. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, Bob, and you have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday season, and I hope to see you again in the new year. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you, Mary. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you both so much. I can just hang up here, I think. Okay. Thanks, Mary. Thank you, Bob. Bye bye.